The engineered bioweapons and vaccines designed to spread infections, cause pandemics, along with the convenient media narrative that everybody should go and get vaccinated, further accelerates the spread of disease. An engineered food collapse leading to starvation and destitution is also the strategy. How is this accomplished? Terraforming the planet by releasing particulate matter into the stratosphere blocks the sunlight that powers photosynthesis in plants and food crops. Purchased or pursued under the false banner of climate change, this terraforming effort is actually an engineered mass extinction event designed to eliminate humans from planet Earth by accelerating or fast forwarding the natural life cycles of your cells. So there's things that they're putting in the atmosphere for you to breathe, drink, eat, and be irradiated by that will force your body into an overdrive of defense mechanisms that will cause you to exhaust the cell and therefore fast forward your aging process, even though you may be only 15, 20, 25 years of age. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the history behind this whole eugenics thing and all this global warming crap, and where it is that the people who are now, who have now instituted something that you're going to see how it led to this particular point. Now, the British Eugenics Society was never disbanded. It's still in effect today. And their revival was carried out under a new banner, ecology and conservation. Let me say that again. Eugenics Society, which is about cropping the population of people of color on this planet, they took a whole new banner, a whole new flag to fly, ecology and conservation. Just as the Nazi Party had roots in their radical environmentalists, what they call Guggenkultur, which is actually counterculture movement of 1920s Germany, British crown agents of the immediate post-war years, that's World War II and World War I, created a series of environmentalist organizations which would form the basis of the new eugenics movement. To this day, those same organizations are the leading promoters worldwide of mass genocide in the name of preserving nature. Both Hitler's race and population genocide program and the promotion of preservation of nature over the advancement of mankind were ideas that were spawned from London in the second half of the 19th century through the work of people like Charles Darwin, Sir Thomas Huxley, Sir Francis Galton, Sir Herbert Spencer, and Sir Arthur Tansley, who all led a revival of an extreme form of Malthusian population genocide. Those are the men that you're looking at right now, whose plans and whose philosophies that the deep state are actually now implementing and carrying out, and hopefully are being under the four-dimensional chess game that's supposedly being played by Trump has been, well, at this particular time, checked. This guy, Julian Huxley, the grandson of Thomas Huxley, created and headed a UN agency called United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or what you may know called UNESCO, and worked, quote, to make the unthinkable thinkable again, i.e. genocide. Now, this man called Lord Bertrand Russell, in his book Prospects of Industrial Civilization, wrote, "The white population of the world will soon cease to increase. The Asiatic races will be longer and the Negroes still longer before their birth rate falls sufficiently to make their numbers stable without help of war and pestilence. Until that happens, the benefits aimed at by socialism can only be partially realized, and the less prolific races will have to defend themselves against the more prolific by methods which are disgusting, even if they are necessary." Now, I want you to understand that this was actually a protocol. This is why you see what's happening in Europe. And everywhere you go, all you see is white folks that's battling over something. They're battling over you. Now, in his 1951 work, The Impact of Science on Society, it was a discussion of the uses of mass psychology to keep the majority of human beings hopelessly backward and compliant. In it, he advocated the kind of mass genocide that became the hallmark of the British royal Prince Philip, who adopted his philosophy as part of his own promotion of environmentalism. Of this, Lord Bertrand Russell wrote, at present, the population of the world is increasing at about 58,000 per diem. War, so far, has had no great effect on this increase. War has hitherto been disappointing in this respect, but perhaps bacteriological war may prove more effective. Look at when this was written. If a Black Death could spread throughout the world once in every generation, survivors would procreate freely without making the world too full. The state of affairs might be somewhat unpleasant, but what of it? Really high-minded people are indifferent to happiness, especially other people's. End quote. Take a look at these faces. Anthropologist Margaret Mead launched global warming as a new population reduction strategy at the 1975 conference in the United States. Working with her there was Dr. John Holdren, who became Barack Obama's science advisor. Holdren was a protege of the population bomb inventor Paul Ehrlich, an architect of the so-called carbon dioxide caps, and a concerted plan for population reduction. In 1982, the UN Charter for Nature was passed by the UN General Assembly. The report, known as the Brundtland Report, after its chairman, Groot Harlem Brundtland, made popular the radical environmentalist catch-all phrase, sustainable development. Now you know where that came from. And when you listen to these jackasses keep talking about sustainable development, they're actually talking about killing off 2/3 of the planet's population. Now, this is very important. Listen carefully. In 1970, Prince Bernhard and his close friend Anton Rupert, South African tobacco magnate, launched the 1001 Nature Trust. The purpose of the trust was to generate a guaranteed financial base for the World Wildlife Fund. The WWF, not the World Wrestling Federation, was started by Prince Philip and Prince Bernhard, the latter a former member of Hitler's Nazi Party. The Club of Rome's 1991 document, The First Global Revolution, stated, listen carefully, quote, in searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. But in designating them as the enemy, we fall into the trap of mistaking symptoms for causes. All these dangers are caused by human intervention, and it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself. End quote. Now you see who it is that's orchestrating this culling and cropping process. Which brings us to what was then called the Anglo-Saxon Initiative. Let me explain this. Based on everything that you heard over the last few frames, there was a meeting that gathered together all of the European church members, political members from every European, Australia, France, England, Germany, entertainment, finance, all the different branches of society. And they started talking about the fact that, listen, our population is diminishing. We diminished it by war. It isn't repopulating fast enough. So what can we do in order to initiate a faster way to actually end up being the sole survivors and the alpha people that's on this planet. Now, always know that white supremacy has always been there. Don't let these Johnny come lately liberals that are calling your names. I really hate the fact that feminists have the gall, these white feminists have the gall and the nerve when they start going through their idiocy to start talking about black people as if we need them to tell us that we need that we are being oppressed and they're out there in front for us and we don't have a voice. All this crap. They have they have co-opted the so-called civil rights movement. They've co-opted the very narrative that we use for liberation, and they've kept it for themselves. And then they parcel it out by giving us a, come along, Tonto, or Man Friday, or Woman Friday, and we'll mention you in there. We'll stick you in there as, the black, what's his name for Captain America. You'll be his sidekick. And they've always been sidekicking our black women. So that's what's been happening. Now, what was the Anglo-Saxon initiative? Was it actually part of the protocols of Zion, anglicized? Well, here's what this particular initiative and gathering of men did. And there was a white man who had actually came out and said that he was sitting in the back there listening to these men yelling at one another about how they're going to survive as a genetic species. Phase one, they said, would be a war that would begin between Israel and Iran. That war would be a thermonuclear war, albeit a limited thermonuclear war. The second phase would be an orchestrated pandemic. That's the phase we're in right now. What happened to phase one? I'm not sure. Maybe it'll come later. But from what I understand, based on intel, that was what was stopped when Trump went over to the East. Right after he became president, he went right to Saudi Arabia, then he went to China, then he went, of all places, to North Korea. Then he went every place else. He even sent a person to Iran, and he wanted no more war. Well, I heard that he was bombing the hell out of people over there in Syria. Not sure. I'm just telling you how it went down and how the intel that I found. The next phase, which is what we have been circumventing and what this whole pandemic has been about, is the crash of the global monetary system, the institution of martial law, and the incarceration of all dissenters. Now, that would have been supposedly the New World Orders or the deep state's plan. But from what we understand and overstand, we are watching now a subversion of that plan and a turning of the events because all the people that were supporting it are now running for cover. Notice that it's members in high places that are all these members of the New World Order are the ones catching the virus and going into seclusion or going into self, quarantining. Thank you, babe. Why is that? And that's what we're going to be discovering. That's what we're going to find out after the 10th or the 11th of April. We'll see what happens. Remember, April 20th is Hitler's birthday, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. This is interesting how all this is supposed to take place in April.